In this tutorial, I'll be showing you step by step how to convert a PSD into a fully functioning website. So this is the website we're aiming to design at the end of the course. Now this layout is from Theme Forest. However, I do have the PSD files. So let me just show you where that is. So here we are. So these are the files. The source PSDs are in here. So you can see these are the home pages that we can work with. But what I'll do to make things easier for me and to make even things easier for you is to just build this website by just looking at this side by side. So if you're new to web design, I recommend that you go ahead and download my WordPress Mastery course. It's absolutely free. The link to that is in the show notes below. And also, if you want to design websites using Divi, I have a course which has a huge discount. Or even if you buy Divi using my affiliate link below, I will give you access to that course absolutely free. Okay, so without wasting a lot of time, let's dive in and let me show you how to design this website in Divi. Today's tutorial is made possible by divicake.com. Check out their huge selection of Divi themes, layouts, and plugins. The link is in the description below. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide this tutorial in two parts. So the first part, I'll just get all the elements in place. And then in the second part, I'll do the fine tuning, the animations, and also adding the images. All right, so let's get started. So right now I need to start off by creating a brand new page. So I'm here in my website. So I'm just going to call this page organic. Click on use the Divi builder. And then I'm going to go and use the visual builder. Okay, so the first thing we want to do here is to start off by creating a slider, because if we come back to our site here, we see that the first thing here is the actual slider. So let's go ahead and create that. So I'm just going to click this plus button, click on full width, and then we're going to add a full width slider. So I'm going to select it. And then over here, all I have to do is to add one more slider. So I'm going to click this duplicate button, and then now we have 3 items that will be rotating here on our slider. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and save, and then I'm going to come over here and delete this top section. Okay, so this is our slider area. So as you can see here now, this is the latest update to Divi, which adds all the default content as we build the website. So this enables you to prototype your website much easier. This is a great update. So if you haven't updated to 3.2, I would recommend that you go ahead and update Divi to Divi 3.2. Okay, so now that we have the slider area, let's take a look at what we can design next. So next, we have this title here and the line below it. So let's go ahead and recreate that. So I'm going to come back over here, click this plus button, and this time we're going to go for a regular section, and we need a 1 column. Okay, so we need a text module. I'm going to select that. So you can see here by default, the text has been entered. But what we're going to do here is we are going to add our heading. So let's just call this heading 1. Okay, so next what I need to do is to assign the heading 1 over here in the visual area. So I'm going to highlight heading 1, and then I'm going to come over here and change it from paragraph to H1. So you can see here that this has been updated. The next thing we need to do is to center it. So I'm going to come over here to design, click on heading text, and then over here I'm going to center it. So now we have it centered. I'm going to save. The next thing we need to do is to add that line below this. So I'm going to come over here. Now you can see here it's quite difficult for me to add my new module. So if you're having the same problem, it's an easy fix. All you have to do is to come over here to expand settings and then click here on the wireframe mode. So now it's easy for you to add a new module. So I'm going to click this plus button here, and the module that we need is a divider. So I'm going to search for it and then select it. So now I need to see what I'm designing. So I'm going to switch over here to my desktop view. So as you can see, we have a line by default that has been added. So we need to customize this. So let's go into design, sizing, and then we are going to change the width of that line. So you can see here as I'm sliding this down to about 20 or even 10%, the line becomes smaller, and then I can center it. And then over here, I can also change its height. In fact, I'll leave the height as it is. And then the divider weight, I can increase that to about 3. Okay, so that looks great. What I may want to do as well is to reduce the spacing above it. So on the custom margin top, I'm going to add 0 and 0 like that, and save. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to add our images. So I'm just going to come back over here on our design. So we can see here that when I mouse over this area, we have this animation happening, and also we have this overlay. So in order for us to achieve this, we have to do this using the gallery module. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and add a new row. So this can be a single column, and then I'm going to search for my gallery, select it. So now I'm going to start adding my images. In fact, we have images by default. Okay. So with these images in there, I'm just going to add dummy images. So let me see what I can use. Okay. So I'm going to go with this image right here. So I'm going to click on select. Right. So that's the size I need. So that's fine. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to make some adjustments to this. So the first thing I'm going to do is to come over here on the elements and just make sure that I remove the show title and caption, and also show pagination. Okay, so now what I can do is I can come over here to the images and I can do some more adjustments. So let's say I want to add more images. I can just do that, and then it's updated right here. Okay, so this is looking great, and this one is not visible. So let me change this. So notice that when I'm making my changes right here, I'm making it in the gallery preview, which is the update to DIVI. Okay, so I'm going to delete that, add one more image. Select that. Okay, so that looks much better now. Okay, so I'm happy with this. The final thing, or the next thing I need to do, is to add an overlay. So I'm going to come over here to design, click on overlay. So we want a color on the overlay. So here on the hover color, I'm just going to choose this one for now. So you can see now when I mouse over here, it changes the color. In fact, let me go with a slightly different color. Let's go ahead with green. Right, so I'm going to go with this. I'm just going to save that. And then the next thing I need to do is my icon color. So I'm going to make my icon color white. And then I'm just going to add an icon. So let's see what icon we can use. So let's go ahead and choose this one right here. Okay, save that. So now we can see we have an overlay and an icon. Right, and you can see all the colors have updated as well, which is great. So if we come back over here, we can see that this is quite similar. Okay, great. Now a few more tweaks to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my module settings, click on design. We need to add some rounded corners. So I'm going to come to the border and making sure that this chain icon is selected. I'm just going to come over here on any of these dials and then just move it over to the right up to about 4. So I think 4 is fine. And what we could also do is we could add a border. So border width, let's set this to 1. And then we're going to make it a really light color. So I'm going to come over here to my border color, reduce the opacity all the way down like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save. So you can see now that looks quite similar. The next thing I need to do is to add my button. So again, I'm going to add another row, single column. So this time it's going to be a button. So I'm going to search for my button module. So by default, it's centered to the left. So we're going to make those changes. So let's see what this button says. It says click here to get started now. So I'll just leave it as click now. And then over here on the URL, I'm just going to add a blank URL like that. And then the most important thing is to come over here to design. So over here on design, I am going to start off by aligning this to the center like that. And then I am going to come over here and activate the use custom styles for button. So I'm going to select that. So the button text color, this needs to be white. And then next for our button background color, I'm going to use this green. Okay, so that's our button. Let me take a look and see if this looks okay. Right, so we're going to need some rounded corners. So let's go ahead and fix that. So right now for our border width, we don't need anything. So I'm just going to remove that. So that's looking much better. And also we have the rounded corners, which is great. Right, so I'm happy with that button. And as I mentioned, I can always go in and make some more finer adjustments in part 2. Okay, so let's take a look here at the preview. So we have all this, that's looking great. So over here now, we are going to need a title, that line on the bottom, and some text. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. And also before I do that, you can see here that we have 2 columns. Okay, so I'm back over here. I'm just going to click on save. So ideally, I'd like to have that on a new section. So I'm going to click this plus button here, click on regular, And then we're going to choose these two columns. So on the left, we're going to have a text module like that. Okay, so I'm just going to save this for now. And then I'm going to use this heading, which I've used right here in the beginning. So I'm just going to duplicate that and drag it into position like that. And then I'm also going to do the same with the border. Duplicate that, drag it into position. Okay, so this is not working for some reason. So I'm just going to come over here to my wireframe mode. And then I'm just going to drag it. And then drag it here, right here into position. Okay, so that's looking great. So those are the quick things that you could do if you can't drag things into position using your desktop view. So the next thing I need to do now is to align this to the left. So I'm going to come over here and click on design, heading text. We're going to align this to the left, and then I'm going to do the same with this line right here on the bottom, like that, design, and then module alignment. We're going to align this to the left. Okay, great. So let's take a look here. So we have a bit of text there, which is great. That's fine. So that is defined by this text that we have here. So I'm going to save. Next, we're going to have an image below this. So I'm going to click this plus button here, search for my image module, select it, and that has been added in place. Save that. So let's see what else we have. So we're going to have these two buttons. But before we add these two buttons, I'm going to come over here and we are going to add these toggles. So we're also going to have the headings. So I'm going to come over here. And again, as we did before, I'm just going to duplicate these one more time, drag it into position, and drag this into position. Right. Okay, so the next thing we want to do now is to add the toggles. So I'm going to click this plus button, and it's right here. So we can see here I've just added it. So we have a slight problem because the toggle is above this line, which is meant to be below the header. So let's fix that. So I'm just going to save this for now, and then I'm going to drag this above. Right, so let's take a look here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. So I'm going to duplicate these. Okay, so that's 5. And then we can go in and make customizations to one of them to make it open by default. So I'm going to click this gear icon here, click on the state, and then change this to open, save. Okay, so that's looking great. So we can see here that this is pretty much looking very, very close to what we have here on this design. Great. So the next thing we're going to do now is to add our latest news. So here on the latest news, we don't have our blog set up, but the content will start showing when we start adding all our blogs into place. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to add a new section, regular. So for this one, I'm going to have a single column, but we are going to have a blog module. Right, so the posts we need are 4. So as I mentioned, right now we don't have anything going on in here, so it won't show correctly. And then the layout, we're going to change this to grid. So you can see here, this is how our images are going to be added and how this is how the content is going to show. So I'm going to save this for now, and then we're going to come back to it and add more content so it looks like the layout that we're trying to design. Okay, so that's the blog area. So the next thing, okay, in fact, before I move ahead, we can see here that we have a title. So let's add that title over there. Okay, but before I do that, I just need to add a background color. So I'm just going to come over here to my section settings, click on background, and we're going to add our very light gray, that. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and save. Now we need the titles. So I'm going to duplicate the row. In fact, I can just copy it. That's even easier. And then I'm just going to paste it over here and then just drag it to the top. Okay, so that's looking much better. So we have our heading, and then this is where all our posts are going to come. Let's just make sure that we are covered. Okay, so that's covered. So the next part now is to add this layout, which has an image in the middle, and we have these content areas over here to the right. So let me see what happens if I click this. So I guess this is meant to open up when I click it. So there's 2 ways we can do this. We can either choose to have images to go in there, or we can have a text module. So we'll see what we can do. Okay, so let's add our new section, and I'm going to click on regular. So the layout we need is this one right here. So I'm going to select it. And then over here, we're going to need an image module. Like that. I'm going to save that. Let's do this a few times. So we're going to need 3 here. Let's have a look. Okay, so those are the 3 images. And then over here, we're going to need some 3 as well. And then we're going to need this big one right here. Okay, so all these are going to be images. So I'm going to search for image module, select it, save that. Then I'm just going to duplicate this a few times. In fact, I'll copy and paste. I find that easier. Right, so now I have my 3 images and one big one right here. So moving ahead, this is also information that we can create using an image module and text and a text module. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come back over here, add a new section, regular section. So we're going to need, let me just double check. So we're going to need 4, and we're also going to need a title. Right, so I'm going to select my 4 columns. So for this, I'm sure we can use a blurb. I think a blurb works much better for this. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So here's my blurb. So we have our image, title, and the text. Image, title, and the text. So I'm just going to reduce the text over here. It's a bit too much. Okay, so that's much better. Save that. So we're going to need a color here in the background as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come over here to my section settings, click on background, and we're going to add that light gray again. Save that. Okay, so that's looking great. So what I need to do now is to go in and make some customizations to this blurb. So I'm going to click this gear icon here, click on design. So we're going to start off with the borders. So I'm going to add a border to this. So the border I'm going to add is 1 pixel. We're going to add some rounded corners. Let's try 4 because that's what we used before. Okay. Now we need to add some padding because our text is very, very close to the edges. Okay, so I'm going to come over here to spacing. Then we're going to activate our chains so that whatever padding we add is going to affect everything in here. So I'm going to add it to the left and right. So I think 10 is fine. And then we're going to also do the top and bottom. That looks fine too. Okay, so that's looking great. I may want to go in and reduce the intensity of the border. So I'm going to come back over here to the border, and I'm going to come to the border color and just choose a very light gray like that. Okay, so that's looking great. I'm going to save. In fact, before I save, I need to come to the image. So over here, we can also add some image borders, but we don't need to add that for this case. And I guess that's all we need to do. So let's go ahead and save. Okay, so now that I have the styling in place, I'm just going to duplicate this a few times and drag this into position. In fact, I always keep forgetting, copying and pasting is much easier. Right, so I'm going to paste it, that, and then one more time. So the next thing now is we need the title to this. So let's come back and copy our title here. And we're going to add it and then drag it into position. Okay, so that's looking great. Let's take a look here. So we have this area here all done now. So here we are going to also have an image and some text. So this one is quite straightforward to do. So I'm going to come back over here, new section, regular section. So we're going to need 3 columns for this. So the first thing we're going to need here is an image module. So I'm going to add it like that. And then, in fact, we can just save it quickly. The next thing we're going to need is a text module. Like that. Okay, so I'm going to save it. So let's take a look back over here. So we have our image and we also have our text. The missing thing here is the title. So we are going to need the title here. So I'm back over here. Let's add our title. So I'm going to come to my wireframe mode and I am going to duplicate my title and divider like that. Bring it all the way to the bottom, like that. And then we're also going to need the divider. Drag it all the way to the bottom. Great. Okay, so let's go back to our desktop view and take a look. So now we have our heading, image, and text. So what we need to do now is to align it to the left, because I think that's how it looks here. Yes, it's aligned to the left. So let's do that. So back over here, I am going to come into design, heading text, align to the left, save. The divider, we need to do the same thing, module settings, design, sizing, and we can align this to the left too. Great. Now I can save. So the next thing we're going to do now is to duplicate this twice and add it over here to the middle. Okay, let's just double check and make sure that that's the case. And yes, it is. Okay, so I am going to copy, paste, copy, paste. Okay, so we have this area now all sorted. So I'm not sure how this got added to the bottom here. Let me just see if we might need it. Definitely we won't need that, so let's get rid of it. So I'm just going to delete this. Okay, now it's time to create the final part. So I know we're going to need a text module, so I'm going to click this plus button and add our text module. Like that. Save. Okay, let's take a look at the next thing. So here we're going to need a title as well. Right, so I forgot what those sliders are called, but I'm just going to click this plus button here and bar counters. Okay, that's what it is. These are bar counters. So let's add a few here. So how many of these? Okay, those are 3. So we have 3 here as well. Great. I'm going to save this, and then we're going to drag this to the bottom. And then all we need now is to add our headings. So I'm going to copy and paste. Okay, but you can see here I've pasted it all over the place. So I just need to drag all this into position. Okay, and then finally it's the bar counters. Great, so the bar counters are in place and everything looks great now. Awesome. Right, so let's go back over here and see what else we can add. So the next part we're going to add is this weekly interview. So all we need here is the title, and we're also going to need some columns of text, and then finally we're going to need the logos. Right, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come back over here, add a brand new section. So this is going to be a regular section, and we're going to need, let me just double check, 3 columns. Okay, so we're going to add our 3 columns. In the first column, we're going to have some text. So I'm going to add my text module. Okay, so let's take a look here. So we're going to need 2 text modules. Save that, and then we're going to clone this. Great. Right, so I'm sure we need a background. Yes, we need a background color. So let's add our background color by coming over here to our section settings, click the background, and then click this plus button to add our color. So we're going to make it light gray as we did before. Save that. So the next part now is to add this heading area. So I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to come over here and paste it. Then next, I just need to drag this to the top where it belongs. Fantastic. So now we have our heading, we have our two text areas, and I'm sure I saw a button somewhere. Yes, we have a button here. So let's work on the button now. So I'm going to click this plus button here and click the button module. So we're going to leave it as click now. Let's go to design, button, and activate the custom styles for button. Right, so we can see here that we are going to need a very small button. So I'll reduce the size, change the text color to white, and button background color. Okay, I'll just choose a random color for now. We're not going to need our border width, so I'm going to get rid of it. So let's take a look. Right, so I think that works. So that's going to be our button right there. I'm going to save. And then finally, I think we're going to need an image. Yes, we are. So I'm going to add my image module. So I'm going to search for it. Great. So now we are going to have our image module right there. Okay, so that's that part done. So let's take a look. Okay, so that's fantastic. So we have most of our sections done. The final part now is these logos, where these logos need to go. So I'm going to come back and we're going to start off with the title. So I'm going to copy this, add our new section, regular, and we're going to add a single row and then just close this. So for this single row, I'm going to paste my title there and then just drag this to the top like that. Right, let's take a look. I think I've made a mistake. Yes, we are going to need 4 images here. So let's go back and delete this. In fact, we don't have to delete this. We can click this little icon here. Now, this allows us to add our column structure. So we need 4. So I'm going to select 4. And in each one of these, we're going to need an image module. So let's add it. But of course, these images are going to be logos, so they're going to be smaller than this. So I'm just going to save this. And then I'm just going to copy and paste it. Fantastic. Right, so for now, I'm just going to go ahead and publish. Okay, so this is our layout. So right now is the prototype. I haven't gone in and added all the animations and all the content that we need. That we're going to do in part 2. Okay, that looks great. Okay, so we have all our placeholders in place. Great. So what we're going to do in part 2 is we are going to go in and do some fine tuning and also adding all our images, animations, and so on. So today's tutorial is made possible by divicake.com. Check out their huge selection of Divi themes, layouts, and plugins. The link is in the description below. All right, so that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching, and tune in for our part 2 where I'll show you how to make this website look real. Thank you very much for watching and see you soon.